Hello, Vadim here, and welcome back to the tutorial series for Natural Selection 2. This is going to be for the Lerk, if you haven't already read the title, and I have a lot more to say about this one than the Skulk tutorial that I've already done, mainly because I have a lot more experience playing Lerk than anything else in NS2, and myself and many others would agree that Skulk and Fade together are some of the hardest things for you to learn in Natural Selection 2. Now, I'm going to start by saying how I learned how to play Lerk. Me personally, I started by just watching a YouTube tutorial, kind of why I wanted to do this in the first place, because I see a lot of people trying to get into lurking or fading, etc. But it wasn't really until I actually got invited by Kalmos to play in a competitive team that I actually started getting any good at it. Now that has definitely helped, and I'm going to be using some of that competitive experience here to actually help you guys. Now, let's get right into it. We're going to start with the basics. Now, first and foremost, the Lerk costs 20 res by itself, so if you're going to go Lerk, you need to go Lerk near the start of the game, almost as soon as you get the res up, because that's when it's the most useful, at the start of the game. But it might be worth waiting, in some cases, for 23 res, which means you'll be able to pick an upgrade. Now, depending on what hive your commander has chosen, you'll have either Celerity, not Celerity, I've always called it Celerity, Shift Hive, which gives you Celerity and Adrenaline, Shade Hive, which gives you Aura and Phantom, or Crag Hive, which gives you Regen and Carapace. Now, I have my own preferences for each of these, but I'm going to start with the most common ones first, and we'll get into the other ones after. Now, the most common one you're going to see is Shift Hive. Now, it's almost always better to just go Celerity for this one, because it just means you're harder to hit, if you move faster in general. But that said, late game, when you start using abilities like Umbra and Spores, which are very energy heavy, it can be worth going Adrenaline. Especially, it means that you'll be able to spike a lot more often. Now, Craghive is picked almost as often as Shift, in my experience. Now, both Regen and Kara are both really good choices, but the way I decide is usually looking at the map and seeing how my commander is playing. If he's got Crags all over the map, that is the alien building that heals aliens, then I will tend to go Kara, because it just gives you that little bit of extra health, and I can just go back to the Crags to heal. Now, if the commander doesn't have many Crags on the map, or I have a long way to travel to get back to one, then I will tend to go regen, because that means you can go in and do the hit and run tactics that the Lurk is made for, without having to go all the way back to the other side of the map, wasting time. You can just go in, bite a few Marines, come out, and take about 5 seconds to regen back up, come back in. It also keeps the Marines on their toes. Now, Shade Hive, I prefer Aura, just because it lets you see Marines through walls and judge how much health they have from the get-go. You'll be able to see a Marine with no armor immediately and just 2-bite him. And you'll be able to see which Marines are very low on health, and you can just finish them off with spikes without even just guessing or retreating when you could get a kill. As with the Skulk tutorial, I'm going to start with your basic movement first. I'm not going to get into the advanced stuff just yet, I'm going to leave that till a bit later. Now, first up, as Lurk, you want to always be moving around. Same as Skulk, a Lurk that's sitting still is a dead Lurk. So you want to always be pressing that spacebar. But that said, every time you press spacebar, it uses a bit of energy. So I tend to press space a couple times to speed myself up, and then hold space. Holding space means you glide. And while you're gliding, you're almost completely silent, except for the little stupid growls that the Lurk makes every now and then. So that can be good for ambushing as well, but we'll cover that a bit later. Now, before we get into the more advanced stuff, let's go with the top 5 things you shouldn't do as a Lurk. These are the most common mistakes I see in myself, my own gameplay, and other Lurks for that matter. Especially the last two. They're the ones that happen to me all the time. Now, number 1, don't ground Lurk. I see so many new rookies sitting on the ground as a Lurk. Not only does it make you an easy target, but you also move a lot slower as well. And that also ties in with the next one as well. Don't sit still. If you're latched onto a wall or something, then the Marines can just look at you and do 100 damage or more in the time it takes for you to realize you're being shot at. And then that leaves you open to either just being killed right on the spot then and there, or someone else finishing you off on the retreat. Number 3, don't fly in straight lines. This is a habit that it took a really long time for me to break. Now, if you fly in a straight line towards a Marine, especially if he's facing you, it means you're a really easy target. Even for a rifle Marine, he's just going to do 100 damage on the spot or just kill you outright. So, if 100 damage as a lurk is a big deal. That's half your health. That means if you try and retreat, all it takes is a few pistol bullets to finish you off. And especially if there's more than one Marine in the room, you're probably going to be a dead lurk. Now, number 4, don't panic. Come in with a plan. You want to know exactly where you're going to retreat to before you even come into the before you even come into the room. Now, I've seen a few lurks, myself included. If you just get caught off guard by a situation or something, you tend to panic and just fly in the wrong direction, or fly into a wall or something like that. I've had another rookie player who I've been talking with a lot recently, who's been trying to lurk, has said he had that exact same problem. So for that reason, I've decided to include that in here. And the number one reason why any lurk dies, pros and rookies alike, it's number one reason I die as well, is don't get greedy. This applies for every bloody life form, but most especially for lurk and fade. Now, even if you get 1 or 2 bites on a Marine and he doesn't die and you retreat because you've taken damage, you don't have to come back and kill him. You've already won that engagement just from doing that damage. Because that means his armor is worn down. If he has no other Marines with him, they're gonna be forced to medpack them. And if there are other Marines in the room, they're gonna have to weld each other, which gives you or someone else a bit of time to go in there and attack them while they have their welders out. Also, every medpack that the commander has to drop, which is usually about 1 per bite or more if you're spiking, then that costs them a bit of res each, so that can slow them down on the upgrade department if they don't have much res already, if your skulks are doing their job. Now, I have fallen victim to this thing quite a bit. It's something that every lurk has to deal with, every fade, every life form in general. You get a bit overconfident, like you get used to fighting players that aren't that good at aiming or something, for example, and then you get caught off guard by the one player who's really good at aiming and they completely kill you outright. So the way I try and get past this is it's all about your mindset. I try to think of every player as the best player, one of the best players in Oz, Lucas. I used to play against him in pugs all the time and get completely owned. So eventually I learnt just to be careful around him. So after those pugs back then, when I was first learning Lurk, I started treating everyone like they were Lucas, and it's done me well. It means I don't fall prey to the greed that a lot of other players do as often. Now, with those big 5 out of the way, let's start getting into the actual tactics of Lurk. Now, before you even try to Lurk, one of the things that you're going to need to know is the maps. If you don't know the map off by heart, it doesn't matter. You just need to know the main areas of the map, like where you can retreat to, the safest ways to go, what is going on in the map. For example, I tend to make sure I know exactly where I'm going to retreat, as I said before. That means knowing where the vents are and the easiest way to get out of the room, the fastest way to get out of the room. Knowing where the nearest gorge, crag, or hive is, that's the spot to retreat to and heal up. Know where the Marines are. Like, I'll use a map in the example here in the background, but if you're in, say, logistics in Tram, you only have 2 ways of getting out. You've got the vent on the left side, and you've got the way you came in. Now, if the Marines have a phase gate in hub, then you're going to have to be very careful if you retreat back through repair, because they could easily call you out, lurk low, and a Marine will come running through hub and try and pinch you in repair. So you've got to be very wary of that. So you've got to make sure that there's no places that they can easily ambush you. If you're ahead of a phase gate, it's very easy for them to get you. Don't engage in a room, this kind of ties into the same thing, don't engage in a room if Marines can come in through your only escape route. Say North Tunnels on Tram. I'm just going to keep using Tram as an example because that's the map I know the best. Now, if there's a Marine in North Tunnels and their base is in Server, and you're helping a skulk bite down the res in platform, then you're going to have huge trouble trying to get out of there because you have the Marine base in Server, and you also have a Marine guarding the vent, lane blocking you from getting out that way. So try to not put yourself in those situations. Those situations are where you will lose a lurk, no matter how good you are. All it needs is a marine that can shoot. Now, next up, you just need to kind of know the map in general. Like, this is something that comes with time and practice. Don't worry if you don't memorize every room to the exact detail. But because I've been playing it so long, and a lot of other players that I play with on the Oz servers, we all kind of know the props and crates, like where all of the objects are to break line of sight in every room, just about. And so you try and use them to your advantage, and also it helps you not get stuck on things on the ceiling. I've lost count of the amount of times when I was learning Lurk, how many times I would get stuck on like a girder or something on the ceiling. It is, it's bloody annoying, let me tell you. Now that we've got the basics out of the way, let's get into the actual engagements themselves, how you should get in, how you should get out, what fights you should be taking, and what fights you shouldn't. Now, something that I like to do before I go into a room as a lurk is stop and ask myself. This is what you should be doing. Stop and ask yourself, number one, what is to be gained from this fight? You don't want to be engaging somewhere if your team isn't going to be gaining anything from it. Are the Marines in that room killing one of your team's res nodes? Is there 2 or 3 Marines in there doing it? If so, there's nothing you can really do by yourself, so wait for more skulks. Are you supporting skulks to chew down one of the Marine nodes? If so, then go in there. That's definitely worth it. Are you killing recappers as Marines? If so, then you need to be careful of it for one, because as I mentioned before, it's very easy for Marines to kind of capture you when you're in their naturals. But that is exactly what you should be doing as Lurk. You want to always be doing something that's worthwhile. Killing recappers, supporting skulks, get stopping Marines from killing your own nodes. There's no point engaging around their base or their phase gates unless you have the rest of your team supporting you for a base rush or to take down the phase gate.